While Pope Francis still walks among us, within the sacred palaces, an unexpected movement is felt. Behind closed doors, meetings, subtle plans, and whispers intertwine, heralding imminent changes. Even the cardinals are beginning to look beyond the established horizon. The next conclave could arrive sooner than expected, bringing with it the election of a new pope. Among the various names being considered, 5 stand out strongly, each one projecting a different vision for the future of the Church. Who will be called to lead Catholicism in the coming years? Stay with us, because the events taking shape could change everything. Talking about the next conclave, while the Pope is still alive, seems almost like a contradiction. Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich, a close associate of the Pope, has expressed his dismay at seeing priests, bishops, cardinals, and other clergy already worried about the next election, as if the papal seat being empty is right around the corner. However, the fact that this topic is being openly discussed in the Vatican shows a turbulent time for the Church, where internal matters seem to have taken over the sacredness of the papacy. Realism makes us face a truth. 2025 will not be like other years. With the Jubilee just beginning, the Church cannot afford a long interruption of spiritual guidance. If Francis' health prevents him from completing this important journey, making quick decisions will be essential to maintain the continuity of the institution. In this climate of uncertainty, the question arises, what direction will the future conclave take? Will they seek a transitional pontiff, capable of uniting the many souls of the College of Cardinals? Or will a figure emerge capable of bringing about a decisive change? If you appreciate our commitment to truth and transparency, please support our work with a super thanks. Each piece of content is born from research, passion, and editing, and our project is completely self-funded. Your contribution allows us to continue this mission. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. There will be a lot of pressure to hold a quick conclave, probably favoring a compromise candidate rather than a strongly identifying choice. We've already made a video about this because since the beginning of Pope Francis's papacy, Pietro Parolin's name has been at the center of speculation. Vatican Secretary of State, Parolin seems like the most likely candidate for succession, and not without good reason. His profile defines him as a man deeply rooted in the dynamics of the Roman Curia, accustomed to navigating environments with precarious balances and complex negotiations. His candidacy is ideal for those seeking continuity and administrative stability. Diplomacy and pragmatism have led him to orchestrate, for example, the controversial dialogue with China, the normalization of relations with Cuba, and the provisional agreement for the appointment of Chinese bishops, measures that have generated both admiration and criticism. Parolin represents commitment, calculated moderation, and the ability to reassure the Curia during a period of great uncertainty. However, the fact that he is a bureaucrat raises doubts. Bureaucrats rarely know how to inspire the faithful. What, in fact, is his vision for the Church? It is legitimate to ask whether a pontiff forged in diplomacy can face the current spiritual challenges, or if he will end up administering with purely technocratic logic, avoiding openly confronting the doctrinal questions that divide the Catholic world today. In a conclave that requires quick convergences, Parolin's name could be the axis of a consensus. But the central question remains, is this the Pope that the Church needs right now? If Parolin represents the Curia's candidate, Matteo Zuppi emerges as the face of the progressive wing, ready to continue, and perhaps radicalize, the legacy of Francis. Archbishop of Bologna and president of the Italian Bishops' Conference, Zuppi manages to speak with everyone without taking too strong of a position. On one hand, he is open to the issues dear to the progressive wing of the Church. On the other, he earns the respect of even the most traditional circles. His profile, primarily pastoral, has its roots in the community of Sant'Egidio, a movement that has made mediation and dialogue its main mission. This gives him an aura of a bridge builder, a peacemaker. But the question remains, what kind of church would he promote? In Bologna, he has managed to win the applause of groups as diverse as the LGBT community and families, demonstrating a pragmatism that, however, raises questions. Is the ability to please everyone a virtue, or does it hide an ambiguity? Does the church need a pastor who makes firm decisions, or a skilled tightrope walker? The risk of a papacy that limits itself to dialogue without addressing internal divisions is real. Zuppi presents himself as a strong candidate, supported by the progressive wing without intimidating the moderate part of the cardinal electorate. The question remains whether he can truly confront the crisis of faith and the erosion of Catholic identity that afflicts the institution today, or if he will simply be an extension of Bergoglio's papacy, with a more conciliatory tone but without substantial change. If the conclave decides to give a voice to the continents that have seen the fastest growth of Catholicism, the next pope may well not be European. Filipino Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagli's name often comes up when talking about a non-Western pope. The former Archbishop of Manila and former prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples, Tagle embodies the idea of a church looking towards a global future. A refined theologian, friend of Francis and strong supporter of his reforms, he is considered the spiritual heir to Pope Francis. Tagle could make history by becoming the first Asian pope, a powerful message for a rising continent where Catholicism faces Islam and increasingly strict political authority in China. However, his close relationship with Bergoglio could limit his ability to chart a truly new course. So the question remains open. Would he truly be the face of a renewal, or just a continuation of the current path, but with a different tone? His training has led him to a very open ecclesial vision, which could further ignite tensions in those who fear an overly ambiguous evolution of the Church. If the next pope were to come from Africa, the name most often mentioned is Cardinal Fridolin Hambongo Besungu, Archbishop of Kinshasa. A theologian with solid experience, a fervent defender of the traditional family and critical of recent doctrinal openings, Hambongo represents the voice of a rapidly expanding Catholicism, where the faithful are not looking for experiments, but a return to doctrinal clarity. Appointed cardinal by Francis, Hambongo has not hesitated to express reservations about some of the pontiff's decisions, particularly regarding the blessing of homosexual couples granted by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. His election would mark a clear departure from the current direction and could favor a doctrinal rebalancing, although his strong identity could make him a polarizing figure among the more progressive European and Latin American cardinals. On the other side of the spectrum, the Brazilian Sergio da Rocha embodies the perspective of an even more openly progressive papacy. Appointed cardinal by Pope Francis and known for his commitment against homophobia and for the inclusion of same-sex couples in the Church, da Rocha is the ideal candidate for those who want continuity with Bergoglio's papacy, but with an acceleration of the reforms. However, the important question remains: is the Church really ready for such a big change? Choosing a pope who is even more reform-minded than Pope Francis could split the Catholic world apart, pushing away those who are already worried about the Church being too open to modern thinking. Sergio da Rocha looks like a strong candidate, but also a risky one, someone who could cause a lot of unexpected reactions. The next papal election will decide whether to follow the path Pope Francis set or take a different road. In the end, a pope like Parolin would guarantee continuity, while Zuppi or da Rocha would push for bolder reforms, and Hambongo could signal a return to a more traditional order. The decision is crucial. Will the Church reaffirm its identity or continue adapting to the world, risking losing itself? The future of Catholicism depends on this fundamental decision. So, what did you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.